What's going on, everybody? It is the one and only Q here from Retro Q Gaming, and we are shooting just a little bit differently today. Now, what does that mean and why? Well, I decided to try something just a little different for all of that. Now, what we're going to do here today is, first off, welcome to our 80th episode of our Quack experimental podcast. Now, we got some stuff to talk about here today. We're going to mix and match it all up. Hopefully, it all goes well. We'll see just how it goes. Hopefully, everyone appreciates the new big up in quality. We don't know if we'll stick with this one. We'll see how it goes after this one. Think of it as a test. Our 2021 new Beast PC, new upgrades and whatnot too. So, without further ado, we'll move right on to what we have next. So, firstly, we're going to talk a little bit about Xbox. This one is Xbox history. In specific, kind of when they were made a laughingstock, if you will. Now, what we have here is some recent announced, not so much announced, but recent revelations that came about due to some interviews talking about the past. And that was specifically relating to when Microsoft decided to get into the hardware market for the first time in around the year 2000. Now, Microsoft actually approached Nintendo in the year 2000 about a buyout. That's kind of crazy when you think about it. And now, basically what happened in this is Microsoft said to Nintendo, listen, your hardware sucks. You guys do the game, we do the hardware. And you can think about it, that makes kind of sense. Microsoft have been more so about hardware than anything else. The OG Xbox Original 180 was the most powerful of the four consoles of its generation. Well, you can't really compare the Xbox 360 versus the PS3 because that one was just an entire mess. But even though the Xbox One was less powerful than the PS4, Microsoft eventually came out with the Xbox One X, which was more powerful than the PS4 Pro. And now they're doing the same thing again with the Xbox Series X, which is technically, on paper at least anyway, more powerful than the PS5. So it kind of makes sense when you look at it from the aspect that Microsoft have always come at it from. Power, 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 hardware, hardware, hardware. But essentially, Microsoft told us that Nintendo's response was, you have to wonder how much of this was literal, but that they were laughed out of the room and Nintendo just laughed their complete asses off when it came to all of this. Now, it's also apparently noted from various different sources and whatnot here that Microsoft have actually approached developers in the past about buying them out. And most of them wouldn't bite in any way, shape, or form. Now, the big thing it comes to when all of this is we actually have some names on here for all of these. So, including some of the publishers and developers and all that they actually attempted to buy out, we have along the lines of Squaresoft, Square Enix, I guess, depending on the time you talk about this, Midway, even EA, and Konami, of all things. Could you imagine if the last 21 years would have been so different to the point where, look at any big game from any one of those companies, and they weren't on PlayStation, they weren't on Nintendo, they weren't on PC, whatever it is. That would be a big difference, especially if it was someone like Square Enix, Squaresoft, whatever it was. When you think of it, they wouldn't have, all your Final Fantasy games would be exclusive to Xbox. EA, your Battlefield games, or whatever it is, would be exclusive to Xbox. Konami, PS2 era Silent Hill games, and anything beyond, Metal Gear Solid, would have been Xbox exclusive. That's kind of crazy. Midway, we'll really not go and talk about and whatnot in there too. But hey, look at it this way, right? Later on this year, 2021, it'll be the same kind of incident, same kind of situation, but this time they'll actually have acquired Bethesda. But speaking of hardware manufacturers buying and purchasing studios and whatnot, we do hear about it now and again. Sony bought Insomniac after their work on, well, several of their games, but most notably and most high profile, Spider-Man. But we have a different one this time. Microsoft have obviously gone and bought, giant entire publishers, let alone just individual studios. But now we have another one that you don't hear about too often. And that one is actually Nintendo. Because Nintendo have come out and announced that they are buying the Canadian developers Next Level Games. Now, when it comes to Next Level Games, you may not have heard of them. Not a very high profile one, but they do have a decent amount of work. Specifically, since Nintendo's buying them, they've made Luigi's Mansion 3, Mario Strikers Charged, and the most important thing in their portfolio, Metroid Prime Federation Force. So they've made primarily Nintendo games, so it's not surprising that they would do something like this. Think Monolith Soft. Well, I guess Monolith Software is not a good example, but think of Retro Studios. That's another comparison there that should feel pretty apt. This deal should be complete around March 1st, so you should see some type of announcement or acquisition or bolstering of the stock or whatever it is in about 2 months, 2.5 months, 1.5 months, whenever it is anyway. Again, not a major overall deal, but it's strange to the point where you don't usually see Nintendo doing this kind of thing, so I figured I'd give it a quick little mention. But speaking of companies founding new studios or buying new studios, and then on the flip side, you have companies either retiring studios or retiring IPs. In this case, we have one that is retiring the IP. This one is Killzone. At least, it looks like it's going to be Killzone. We're looking like we have an RIP, rest in peace, Killzone, because Guerrilla Games have permanently disabled the official Killzone website, which now just regular directs to PlayStation.com. Now, this will have an effect on several different things. Most notably, it actually affects some of the features of some of the existing games, or rather just the one on PS4. It's the only proper one still supported, fully at least anyway. So, multiplayer modes, player stats, and ranking data for Killzone Shadowfall and Mercenary, that's right, the PS Vita one, will still be live. However, Shadowfall on PS4 loses all the clan functions and features and functionality. What else do we have here? So is Killzone. Is it dead is the big important thing here. Is the studio essentially just going to be a big Horizon factory now? Is it going to be like Horizon Zero Dawn? Horizon, is it Forbidden West? You get the idea. Is it just going to focus? Is it going to do basically what Naughty Dog used to, or Naughty Dog does now? They used to have two separate teams. Naughty Dog used to have an A team and a B team. A team was making Uncharted, and B team made The Last of Us. Something like that has probably changed nowadays, but it makes you wonder if something like Guerrilla Games is completely consolidated into one big team now, where some of them aren't focused on Killzone or other smaller stuff, and everything is just focused on the one big one, which can be a little bit of a problem within itself when you look at it that way. Because, let's face it, I loved Killzone 1 back in the day on the PS2. Killzone 1 was fantastic. It was really, really good. It felt like the only thing that could not even, I won't say come close to Halo, but Halo just completely dominated. Halo and Time Splitters were the two kings of that generation when it came to first-person shooters. And Killzone got up there close. They were obviously, Time Splitters and Halo are very different games, but Killzone felt, at the time anyway, that it wasn't a Halo killer, but it was a damn good shot. So that's an important one. Of course, Killzone 2 is infamous for the whole bullshot when it came to the CGI trailer and what would eventually be the demo. I completely skipped the game and wrote off the franchise for the most part because of that. And, well, Killzone 3, I didn't touch at all. Except for, I played like 5 minutes of a demo, which wasn't worth it because it was like 40 gigabytes on the PS3. Pretty rough. Killzone Shadowfall, it came through with my PS4. Played it a few times, completed it like 2 or 3 times, I should say. I got all the single player trophies, and I don't think I've turned it on since 2013. So yeah, but anyway, it's always disappointing when a franchise or an IP or whatever just gets buried and a company becomes a little factory like this. It's never really a good time when it comes to all of that. But speaking of stuff being hoarded and being retired and being kept away from the public and whatnot, we're going to look at what's essentially starting to, maybe even trying to become, the Disney of technology. Because we all know about that Disney vault. So we have Epic Games and Timmy Tencent. Why is this no surprise? Well, it's because look who we're talking about anyway. Now, Epic Games have actually bought Rad Game Tools. Now, Rad Game Tools gives them ownership of all the studio, the development, and all the technology that they own. Most notably, it includes two things that you could have possibly heard of. One is Bink Video, which is included, unfortunately included, because Bink Video sucks in the last 15-ish years. We've moved on beyond that technology that we don't need it, and what it offers is still pretty shite, but everyone cheaps out and still uses it so they don't have to learn or do anything different and new. But either way, Bink Video, a technology that has not been properly relevant since the PS2 era, is now owned by Epic Games because of Rad Game Tools. Now, there's also one other one that's important to mention in here as well, because Rad Game Tools also make the Oodle texture compression. This is one of the ones that's used on the PS5, and that helps with their relatively slow SSD of only 5.5 gigabits per second. Pretty slow when it comes to PCIe 4.0. And then, of course, you've got all the usual fanboy responses that don't understand technology and be like, oh, compressed data of 9 gigabits per second, Oodle compressed texture data of 22 gigabits per second. The point is, the console does use it, and Epic now owns it. So that's a very interesting one as well. This is also going to affect game development in some ways down the line too, because when you think about it, it's now going to be able, both Bink Video and Oodle texture compression, be licensed out to other devs to use it, which it pretty much was anyway for Rad Game Tools. It's just if companies wanted to, if hardware would support it, etc., etc., etc. But the notable thing about this is it's also going to be, going forward, factored in to the Unreal Engine. So it's going to be natively supported in engine, depending on how it's all going to be leveraged. So this has big ramifications for not just the PlayStation 5, because there are people out there that don't understand anything that are, because what is it? Sony have something like a 1.4% or 0.4% ownership in Epic at this point, or a stake. I shouldn't even call it ownership, it's so low. And they're saying, oh yeah, Sony now have ownership of this, and what? No, it doesn't work that way at all. These people are idiots. So this is an industry-wide kind of thing, as far as we know, and I don't see it why it wouldn't be. Unreal Engine is, I won't say an open standard, but it's there for anyone who wants to use it. The licensing is there, and it's not just for Sony and the PlayStation 5. Now, what else have we got? Well, we have some good news as well. Seems like we haven't had any of that so far this time. But we're going to talk about a service I have never once used before in my life, will probably never use at all ever in the future, because I have no need for it whatsoever. But there's an important thing regarding this service and everyone else who likes quality music. I was trying to figure out a way to say it without saying music to try and leave it going as much as possible. Anyway, we have Spotify. So with Spotify, if you're one of the people who likes to pay for not having ownership for anything, then this announcement is right up your alley. So many of the Persona game soundtracks have recently been added to Spotify outside of Japan, which is big news for anyone who likes good quality music. So we have, along the lines of, but not limited to, Persona 2, Persona 3, Persona 4, Persona 5, and the spin-offs like the dancing games, the arena games, and even the Q series games. No, not mine, but just the ones that came on the 3DS. Now, the big important thing about this is Persona has some amazing, absolute bangers when it comes to music. Everyone loves Mass Destruction. Everyone loves Beneath the Mask. Everyone loves Rivers in the Desert. Everyone loves X Song Name Incorporated. It's basically like that. So go and check them all out if you like to pay for music that you do not retain ownership of. But hey, it is what it is. Just to give you a quick idea, if you're wondering what one is for you, Persona 3 has a real hip-hop vibe when it comes to the music. Persona 4 is really poppy, J-poppy style. And Persona 5 is what, well, I'd kind of call it funky jazz, but apparently it's called acid jazz. I don't know the difference. All I know is it just sounds absolute beast when you're listening to the music. And that, at the end of the day, is all that matters. But moving along to what we can have ownership of, we're going to talk about PC gaming. Now, we're going to talk about the glorious Steam Master Race in this one. And let's face it, because, you know, it is the best and most feature-filled and feature-packed store. this one in particular, we're going to look at someone who's recently came back, Microsoft. Now, 6 Microsoft games have made the 2020 top sellers list on Steam. And this is brilliant. We're going to look at the games first, okay? We have Sea of Thieves, Halo the Master Chief Collection, Ori and Will of the Wisps, Microsoft Flight Simulator, Grounded, and Age of Empires 2. And this is why it's brilliant that Microsoft had the right decision to go third-party, multi-platform games with practically all of their games, because PC does not count as Xbox. It's a separate platform, you Xbox fanboy fucks. You don't get to claim that W. You don't get to claim that win. You know why? Because it's a massive L that your company has gone multi-platform. It's a massive win for actual gamers like us, but it's a massive L for people like you. Anyway, back to the point here. So it's brilliant that they've gone day one PC as well as the likes of Xbox and all in here too. Now, this has opened them to the biggest market in gaming in any platform, which we'll talk a little bit more in a minute. But you know what? Why is it so hard? Dude, these are killing me with this new light and all here too. So let's do this just a little bit differently, shall we? Now, of all those games listed, I have one of them. Oh, no, that's not right. I have 3 of those games listed on Steam, but only one of them which I have bought in 2020. So, along those lines, we have... But the big problem is, with Halo, the Master Chief Collection, it did technically launch the year before in 2019, in December. And Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo 3 ODST, and Halo 4 were added over the course of 2020. So I can understand why it's kind of included on there. And it just means over the time when more games are added, and more important ones that people wanted were added, that people would buy it during 2020 when it was more value. But of course, let's face it, right? Looking forward to the next versions. Oh yeah, and I still need to buy Microsoft Flight Simulator. But looking forward, we have the best versions of all Microsoft first-party games. And eventually, what will probably be Halo 5, when that pretty much inevitably gets ported over. And Halo Infinite on Steam, on PC. Because it's not Xbox. It is multiplat, baby. Multiplat. So, also, the biggest games... Wait a minute, my notes here are terrible. Also, the biggest it's ever... Oh, yes. Also, so when it comes to the biggest market that Microsoft have been open up to with PC gaming... This is really ramified by what Steam have put out with their 2020 user statistics and whatnot as well. Because as I mentioned, and I am always right, as we know, Microsoft, Steam/Valve are the biggest market in the world on PC. With 120 million monthly active users. That is more monthly active users on Steam compared to every single PlayStation 4 that has been sold. Every single PlayStation 4. The second best selling video game console of all time. And yet, PC still beats it. Of course it does. It's the best platform. It's the biggest platform. Why wouldn't it? Now, we've also got another big important announcement that sent a little bit of a shockwave throughout the gaming industry recently, and that one is relating to Star Wars. Specifically, that Star Wars, which was used to, well, it's obviously owned by Disney, but EA used to have exclusive rights in, I think it was a 10-year or maybe 8-year deal, saying that they had the exclusive rights and no one but them could make proper Star Wars games, official Star Wars games anyway. Now, it seems that EA have actually lost that license. So EA no longer have the exclusive license when it comes to making Star Wars games. And that's a big deal. And essentially it's for 2 different reasons. One, Disney knew this was coming up. So what they did is Disney founded a new studio, a new branding more so. It's not a specific developer, but it's just more of a whole branding thing. And it's called Lucasfilms Games. Instead of Lucas Games or Lucas Arts like we used to have, it's Lucasfilm Games. So, with this one and what they're doing, it makes sense that Disney would want to be more active and more involved when it comes to all of that. Now, EA have confirmed that even though they have lost the license and they are not exclusively the developers of Star Wars games going forward, they have confirmed that they do have multiple Star Wars games in development as it is right now. But Here is the other big important one. We all knew EA would still be making them. We have already got one new confirmation of a non-EA developed Star Wars game. And this one is Ubisoft. Ubisoft have confirmed that they're making a new Star Wars game with Massive Games, aka the Division developers. So basically it's probably all of this is coming about by, you might remember what happened with the Battlefield 2, Star Wars Battle, I usually call it Star Wars Battlefield 2, that's why I'm getting tongue-tied. Star Wars Battlefront 2, aka Star Wars Battlefield 2. You might remember how poorly that went over when there was talks back then of them losing the license, that EA were having emergency meetings and all because EA like to start, fucking hell, there's so many different companies and so many different who owns what and everything being tied together. Disney are very, very protective and very, very conscious of their brand and their brands and how they're portrayed and their reputation and whatnot as well. And I mean, we've only really seen one Star Wars game since then. No, actually two. Star Wars Squadrons, Jedi Fallen Order. So, I mean, I guess we have seen a couple of games since then, but I think it's probably primarily because of how all that was handled, because of the loot boxes making big bad news all over the world. It was a pretty rough time for at least Star Wars, EA, and Disney. Speaking of rough times and games getting bad news and bad press, we've got some more Cyberpunk stuff to talk about. Now, this of course is the horse that is already dead, has been beaten more and more and more, and will not come back to life, so you cannot beat it yet again, no matter how much you want it to, how much your favorite little clickbait YouTuber out there wants it to, or even the shill media. Now, this time, it's directly a video message from one of the co-founders of CD Projekt. CD Projekt, as in the overall company, the ones that include the developer, which is CD Projekt Red. So, here is what was said in this. This is the Cliff Notes version of it. It's a 5-minute apology, basically, talking about what happened before launch, etc., and why it happened and things like that. Now, so, the co-founder, he claims that they did focus too much on the PC version. You can't focus too much on the PC version. It should get the best love and affection. It is the best possible way your game will ever be played and seen, so it is the most important version of the game. Now, here's the big problem. That while they did focus so much mainly on the PC version, they apparently didn't see many of the issues on the last gen consoles. Really, dog? If you've seen anything out there about that, you know that's a pure, straight up lie. Because it sounds impossible when you think about it, as in just the sheer scope and all as well. Because, Jesus, it's just impossible as fuck with how much has gone wrong and how much we've seen on it. But here's the kicker on top of it that no one extra believes. Former and current development staff for CD Projekt Red, the actual game development studio in there, have come out kind of unofficially and said that that the studio was completely aware of the last gen issues and that they still pushed on ahead and didn't bother fixing anything other than, hey, the game is not turning on. But you got big crashes and all over the place. So it's just absolute bullshit. But even to this magnitude, it's some absolute sketchiness at CD Projekt and CD Projekt Red. It's just an absolute mess. They also gave an updated timeline on patches, hotfixes, DLC, and even the new current gen versions. So what's going to happen at the moment is there are planned to be 2 major patches very soon. One will be within the next few days of... Well, it was within the next 10 days of the video announcement, so I think it's within the next maybe 6 days as I'm recording this one, give or take. And the second one will be within a few weeks after that one. The DLC will start coming just after the second half of this year, 2021, and the current gen version proper upgrades, the free upgrades if you already own the game, will be in late 2021. Based on the timeline they showed, we're probably talking October, November of 2021, based on their bar graph and all at the time. Now, as COVID delays, as everyone likes to blame and complain about and all, and just regular delays and everything that would push, I reckon they'll push the the current gen versions back to 2022. But ultimately, this shows that the CD Projekt Red, the investors, the management, the executives, that they just completely forced it all out, even on PC, just to hit the current gen launch and the Christmas sales period, even though they could have still properly released it, working fully on time after about another year for next Christmas's one. But no, they needed to get it out for this Christmas, and they needed to get it out for this launch, which has probably gone worse than anything so far if they had have delayed it by another year again. But anyway, despite the game clearly needing at least 6 months, maybe even an entire year of dev time, all I can say is that I am glad that I got my refund when a couple of months ago they delayed it by another couple of weeks at the time, and I was just so happy. It was said that at the time the delay was to do with the optimization on the last gen versions, and clearly I'd well believe it. But if the PC version was as finished as they said, clearly I won no matter what the truth is. If it was delayed for that and the PC version was finished, or if it just wasn't, I still win because it's a fucking mess. Luckily, when the game does launch, hopefully fixed in about a year from now, I'll pick it up. Maybe in the nice cheap Steam sale of Christmas next year. Who knows, maybe they'll have a big celebration CD Projekt Red sale where it's like, hey, congratulations, the game is now out of pre-alpha state. It's finally retail ready. Here's some 50% off. Then I'll buy it, then I'll beast it, and then I'll play it. In the meantime, though, they can go outside and play hide and go fuck themselves. Anyway, back to some more PC gaming news. This one is more about current gen consoles being so shit, just because that is what they are. We're talking Outriders. Outriders is a terrible looking game. And when I say terrible looking, I mean the gameplay and the mechanics and whatnot too. But we have system requirements, and for some reason everyone has been bigging up this one, despite it being a cross-generational game, so it's yikes. I mean, it's different when it's the Medium or Godfall or something like that, because they are current gen only games. But Outriders is a cross-gen game. It's on the Xbox One, it's on the PS4, it's on the Xbox Series MES consoles, and it's on the PS5. And of course, it's on the PC. Now, it just goes to show, though, how unimpressive that basically both console generations are when you look at it as well. Specifically the old ones and the previous ones. They were just epic yikes in there too. So, we have some system requirements for this. Now, we have 3 sets of system requirements. 2 of them are fully done and fully nailed down and whatnot. But one of them is basically to be fully decided yet, as it stands for the moment. All of these ones, usually when you see system requirements and all, they're never telling you quality, they're never telling you target frame rate or resolution. Sometimes you get that, but it's usually the smaller outliers. One might say it's the Outriders when it comes to that. But luckily, in this one, we have a proper, detailed, specific explanation of the whole thing. So, the developing studio actually said that all of this is aiming for minimum 60 FPS, because of course, it's PC. We don't settle for 30. Now, what we have is, starting with the minimum, it really goes to show just how bad the old consoles were. And even, like I said, some of the new ones. You can run using a CPU from 2012 and a GPU from 2014. The minimum spec for Outriders, the low preset 720p, 60 FPS. Operating system Windows 10 64-bit. CPU Intel i5 3470 or AMD FX 8350. 8GB of RAM. On the GPU side, you're looking at an NVIDIA GeForce 750 Ti or an AMD Radeon R9 270X. 70GB of storage and DirectX 11. Recommended spec, high preset, 1080p, 60 FPS. Windows 10, Intel i5 3470, again, it's the same CPU. AMD FX 8350, same CPU on both of them again. RAM 8GB, same again. GPU NVIDIA GeForce GTX 750 Ti or AMD. Wait a minute. That doesn't make sense. They're both the same requirements. Did they fuck it up? I pasted this directly from their website. Or directly from their announcement. Okay, I'm going to skip the recommended, which is the high preset, same one, because the specs are the same. The recommended requirements are the same. But I pasted it directly from their one. So I'm not sure how it's done that. And the fact that the first one and third one, which I did in one big paste, the Ultra and it goes minimum recommended Ultra, and I pasted them all in one giant thing, it doesn't make sense why this would change it anyway. But here we have it. Ultra preset. The one that is not properly done. We have 4K. That's native 4K, 2160p. None of this console shit. None of this DLSS shit. It's proper, true, native. 60 FPS. Windows 10. CPU, to be determined. RAM, 16 gigabyte. GPU, to be determined. Storage, 70 gigabyte. And DirectX version 12. And not only all of what we've seen here, but Outriders devs actually put out a small video about the whole thing, specifically showcasing all the requirements and all of the advanced features that you can get to with all of this, all the differences and whatnot too, including ultra-wide support, DLSS, and NVIDIA Ansel. I love NVIDIA Ansel. I wish more companies and games would use it. It usually beats the shit out of any in-game photo mode. On top of all of that, basically, as they say, if you've bought a desktop within the last 6 years, you'll be fine. Or if you want to match current gen style stuff, depending on your resolution and whatnot, but at least on the overall quality front, it basically means a high-end PC from the last 4 or 5 years. Because when you look at most of the games, the Medium and Godfall and stuff like that, yeah, you can get by with a 1080 Ti or something, which is a 2016 GPU. So, big oof when it comes to that. Now, having said all that, I do have one extra little big important thing to talk about here. It's more of a little teaser just for the moment. I have a big announcement coming tomorrow, depending on when you see this video. Hopefully it will be uploaded today on the 16th of January. And if that is when you're seeing it, we will have a big announcement which will be uploaded in its own separate video tomorrow on the channel. So keep an eye out for that one. I know I've been streaming a bit more lately, and this is related to that and everything going forward as well. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I don't know fully how I feel about it just yet, but I will leave that for the other video tomorrow, and we'll worry about that one. Now, having said all that, we are right at the end of our beautiful little one. The only thing we do have to talk about is the best segment that we come across every single time we do one of these. And that, of course, is Q, what's up? What's going on? What's going down? What is the 411? What is going on? What are you playing? Well, because I have this glorious new top-of-the-line gaming PC, it can mean only one specific thing. I'm going to play everything. Now, I've played through the entirety of GTA 5 on a PC, completely maxed out settings, even the advanced experimental settings as well, and I am on average getting about 120 FPS. It might drop below us, 110 if I'm lucky, 100, or if I'm unlucky, 108 in a big heavy scene. But yeah, it's glorious. Just finished it last night, 120 FPS, GTA 5. It's going to be some damn good shit going forward, looking into GTA 6. But that is much further down the line, of course. I've also played GTA 4, which is something I just got through streaming as well. I do want to eventually move on to... Did I say GTA 4? Gears 4, which I want to move on to Gears 5, hopefully fairly soon. We have to figure out a way based on the new announcement and some new changes and stuff that's coming very, very soon anyway. Now, this, of course, does leave me a lot of stuff to play, because now I have a new top-end beast PC. I can play everything the way I want. There was a couple of things I was holding off that I didn't want to play because I wasn't happy with the quality or performance. Now, that's not an issue anymore. So, we'll see what comes up next, but we do have along the lines of stuff like Death Stranding, maybe even Horizon Zero Dawn, Mafia Definitive Edition, Monster Hunter World can get a full proper playthrough, Yakuza Kiwami 2, there's a few other games and all in there as well. We will have to wait and see how it goes. Plenty of time, plenty of whatever it is, but yeah, it's going to be damn good times. But of course, like I said, in the meantime, keep an eye out for that announcement, which will have other upcoming stuff in there too, because that is an important one to keep your eye on. Now, having said all that, of course, we are finished this week on our Quack Experimental Podcast, our 80th episode. Who knew? Who knew we'd make it this far? Only 20 more to go for another big milestone. But that it's for 20 episodes from now. Then we'll worry about that. In the meantime, feel free to slide on into the comment section below. They're there for a reason. Those reasons, of course, are if you want to have questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, opinions, butthurt, salt, praise, whatever it is, it all goes right on down there. And while you're at it, why not slide on in, hit the appropriate button to let me know how I did on the video. And while you're at it, head on over and hit the subscribe button and even ring that little notification bell. That way you can be one of the few people, the few exclusive, high quality people in the know that gets one of these episodes delivered straight to you whenever we do finally get around to doing one, because we're not on the same old schedule that we used to be. Anyway, that's all that. I'm out. I'll see you guys next week. And remember, winners don't play switchboards.